Bro, why do you hate Sony so much? This is like your Sony absolutely sucks part 3. Why can't you just be happy that Sony Bravia 8 Mark II won the king of TVs on the shootout? Well, I cannot be happy, bro, when they are using the latest generation QD OLED panel that is capable of 400 nits plus, and this is what they give you: 250 nits. Why? So how can you be happy with that? If you check out this review from HD TV Test, he mentions that the brightness improvement from the A95L to the Bravia 8 Mark II was less of a jump that from the Bravia 8 Mark II and the rest of the competition. Let that sink in. After 2 years, the A95L is a second generation QD OLED panel, and the Bravia 8 Mark II is like a fourth generation. After 2 years, that's the improvement. So we have to be happy with that. Let that make sense. Also, I know no TV is perfect, okay? And if you watch any reviews from any of these TVs, you're gonna see a lot of issues. Go on the internet and search for this TV, and you're gonna see a lot of love from people. People know, people are not stupid. Okay, people know that they could do a lot better. How can you still be 120 hertz when the competition is 165 hertz? You just have only 2 HDMI 2.1 outputs. It doesn't support full 444 pass-through if you're working with a PC for gaming. And it's just so underwhelming. You cannot be happy with that. Sony winning the TV shootout is not good for the industry. It's not good for Sony fans. And I think it's not even good for Sony, because it's like rewarding mediocrity. Rewarding like a very lazy attempt of delivering something. How do I know that the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II can be a lot better? Because it's literally the same panel as the Samsung S95F. So I would expect at least the brightness to be the same. Now on top of that, it has more color banding on HDR based on other reviews from our teams. It has worse color banding than typical QD OLED displays, including the A95L. It has worse audio than the A95L based on other reviews and people's feedback. So it is just beyond underwhelming. It's flat out disappointing. And now they crown this Bravia 8 Mark II on the shootout because it was very accurate on SDR. Now let me explain this very, very clear. Look, I'm not an expert, but I've been doing this YouTube thing for like 2 years, reading to every single comment, okay, and responding. And also watching the content and the videos from the rest of the content creators on this space. And I know, if there's something that I know, is what people think about it, okay, because I read what people say about all these topics. And I want to make this very clear. Accuracy is not bad, okay? The reason why accurate picture presets like filmmaker mode have bad reputation, or people think that accuracy is just a washed out, pale, and lifeless picture quality, and it's just something that you should never use. The reason that happens, I think, is 2 main reasons. One, accurate SDR doesn't have it's not going to push all the performance that these TVs have. Why? Well, simply because these TVs are a lot more bright. They are brighter and more colorful than accurate SDR. So, if you are a purist and you buy a $3,000 TV to then use filmmaker mode on SDR, you're doing a disservice to yourself. Now you could say, if you watch low quality content on a high-end display, that's like a waste of money too. Yeah, I think so. Now I understand not always you can use HDR and 4K plus resolution like we can do with PC gaming. I understand. But my point is, it just makes no sense to use SDR as a point of comparison between these high-end TVs, because with accurate SDR, you're just not seeing what you paid for. You paid for more brightness and more colors and more resolution. Why would you care about or why would you intentionally reduce all of that? It's like you're doing a disservice to yourself. So definitely, on any of these competitions, SDR should be out of the picture. It doesn't matter, it's completely irrelevant. And you should try to avoid it at all costs. Now, if you have no choice and there's a show or something you really want to see and it's on SDR, I would just stop the SDR. Now that has problems. If you try to increase the colors beyond SDR colors and increase the brightness, you're gonna have some issues. And some things are gonna look bad or weird. And if you overdo it, you're gonna ruin the image. You're gonna see skin tones that look like lobsters, for example. But is that better than accurate SDR? Yeah, I much rather have bad looking skin tones and all juiced up and messed up. I mean, we know how to juice up the SDR so it looks better than default, and we can be happy with that, even if it's not accurate. So we all know how to do that. You can copy settings online or buy them or whatever. I mean, anything would look better on your super bright and colorful TV than 200 nits SDR. Okay. But I get that. I agree. Accurate SDR is trash. I would never use it. I never use it on my PC, definitely. And I would not recommend anyone to use that. And if you have to watch SDR, yes, you stop the colors. Just make sure, be careful. When you copy settings online or you buy settings or whatever, be careful, because if you start using contrast enhancer, I'm gonna crush blacks, clip the whites. If you start increasing the color saturation or going wild with the colors, you're gonna start clipping colors and losing details. Although it's actually very easy to get wild colors without clipping on SDR on these TVs, actually. But my point is, you have to be careful, because you don't want to be losing details that you should be able to see just to make the picture pop, for example. At least, if you're gonna do some juiced up vivid mode settings, at least make sure that you see everything. So there's no need to mismatch full range and limited and all of that. That is a mistake I made when I was starting, and the reason is sometimes it does look better, especially on HDR when we have black level rays and other issues. Okay, but when the content is good, you don't have to do that. It's just not gonna look better. You're gonna make things worse, because you're gonna crush blacks and you're gonna clip the whites and the colors. So you don't want to do that. So now, HDR, bro. Accurate, perfectly accurate, even no ABL. We don't have that yet, but ideally, perfectly accurate HDR is the best. It's gonna have all the brightness and the colors that you paid for. Yeah, all these TVs have ABL. That's why we see this graph here, and there's no way around it. Okay, it's just the way it is. Actually, the biggest difference between the reference monitor and these consumer displays is most likely the full screen brightness power. Because QD OLED has perfect blacks. The reference monitor doesn't have perfect blacks, and it has better color the reference monitor. So this is really the biggest difference. The reference monitor has a much higher full screen brightness, like 1,000 nits. So, but understand, even with ABL and everything, I mean SDR has ABL too, but HDR, accurate HDR, I'm talking about, yes, filmmaker mode has all the brightness, all the colors, and all the performance that you paid for. If you don't like it, if you just buy your TV HDR, filmmaker mode, and you're like, okay, this looks like trash, the reason why you don't like it, well, I messed this up. So the reason why you don't like accurate HDR sometimes is because the content is not bright and colorful. And that's what you're looking for. You paid for a bright and colorful TV, and now you go on Netflix, and the movie is 300 nits. So why would you pay for 1,000 nits plus to then having to watch an accurate 300 nits? Okay, it doesn't make any sense. But the problem is the content. Okay, the content is not impressive. So accuracy means the creator's intent. You might not like that. You might not like the creator's intent. Now, the other reason why accuracy has a bad reputation, especially on HDR, is because HDR doesn't care or doesn't account for the ambient light. There's no compensation for that. With accurate HDR, you have to be in a dark room. So if you're struggling to see on the darkness, you have to turn off the lights, okay? And most people don't do that. But these TVs and the best picture quality are not for most people. So the argument that most of the content is SDR and low quality, so then that's very important, I don't think it's a good argument, because for most content, why would you spend $3,000 on a TV, bro? Just get a cheap LCD, or even better, get a cheap plasma. Get a cheap plasma TV, you're gonna be happy. Of course, if you turn off the lights, the plasmas are not very bright. This is like 60 nits full screen. This Pioneer Cooler right here, very dim. It still looks amazing. So understand that, bro. Especially for gaming and PC gaming, where you can always have the brightness that your display needs. You don't have to use all the settings. You don't need special settings from anywhere on the internet. Of course, we know we can always improve it a little bit. You go to the service menu on the Samsung and get more brightness and all that. So yeah, definitely do that. But my point is, you don't need those magical settings that an expert on the internet created so you can enjoy your TV, because filmmaker mode absolutely sucks. That is nonsense, bro. It's just flat out is a lie. Okay, accurate HDR looks the best, and if you don't like it, you don't like the content. It's that simple, because accuracy on HDR means the creator's intent. It also means that on SDR, but it doesn't make any sense to intentionally restrict the capabilities of your TV. Okay? So let me know, bro. Let me know if you really have a question about that or something. I'll try to, I don't know, read an article or something, show you the proof, the factual evidence. Because you might think I'm just another YouTuber telling his story, and I might be completely wrong. Okay, I'm not an expert, but I am 100% sure that I'm right on this one. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying it. Okay, so for comparison purposes, on all these high-end displays, HDR is the way to go, and SDR should not be considered. It's that simple. Or, to be more specific, HDR content that pushes all the performance of these displays is what should be used. Of course. Why would you use an HDR movie to compare bright TVs that is just 300 nits? I mean, not even Sony would do that. I saw when Sony was the video from HDTV test where he checked the RGB mini LED Sony TV coming. They were playing the movie Aladdin, and it was like 300 nits. So what Sony did was just to juice up the settings on vivid mode to showcase all the brightness and colors that that display has. Otherwise, accurate 300 nits movie that sucks. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think that should be very clear. So bottom line, to crown the Bravia 8 Mark II because it's accurate on SDR makes no sense. All these TVs after calibration could be accurate on SDR. So yeah, I think that's so important to understand. Now, let me make sure I don't miss all the disadvantages. Look, it looks like I'm crapping on the Bravia 8 Mark II, and I am, and the reason is I don't think this was a good attempt, man. This was not good at all. This was not good at all. TV that has more. Let me get the ad out of the way. I was saying the TV that has more color banding that QD OLEDs usually have. It doesn't support a full 444 chroma pass through. It has a tone mapping. This is something that Sony has to change. It has this dynamic tone mapping that HDTV test is explaining here. It's not truly HGIG. He's saying that sometimes you see the highlight detail and then it slowly disappears. So then you have to set it with that and then go back to doing tone mapping. It just doesn't make any sense, man. Sony knows how to do HGIG and something, like the reference monitor. They know how to do that. So it just makes no sense that they don't have that as an option. Just way too many downsides. Now, the other thing that for me is a deal breaker. For me to buy a Sony TV, they have to change this. I would never buy a TV that is dimming, because all the accuracy and all the performance goes down the toilet as soon as you're watching like a football game or playing a video game that has HUD elements or static elements on the screen. You start getting dimming over time. And it's like, where is the brightness that I paid for? It's just going down. I want to turn that off, and they don't let you turn that off. Sony doesn't let you turn off the ASBL dimming like you can do with LG and Samsung. Look at this, significantly dimmer, and it starts going down, and it's way too many misses. Way too many misses. Look at that. 5 minutes later, it's just another TV. Like, I mean. So yeah, man, let's leave it there. I think we did enough. I mean, again, my purpose is not to damage Sony's brand. I'm just very upset that they had such an easy win. Sony had an easy win. All they had to do was be an S95F without the matte finish. Easy, just easy win. Because they went with a semi-glossy finish. It's not perfectly glossy, but better than the matte finish. All they had to do was to deliver at least the same refresh rate, 165 Hertz, and be better with the gaming features, and maybe add something like Game Motion Plus, which is motion interpolation for gaming, like Samsung has, and be as bright. I mean, is that too much to ask? I don't think so. I don't think that's too much to ask. And for people who say, bro, every TV doesn't have to be for you, that's not a gaming TV. Wrong. When you go to the store, Sony has more demo content about the PS5 games than any of the other brands. LG is just displaying some Prime Video series that looks like crap, and Sony is really the TV that's showing gaming and a lot of advertisements for the PS5. So don't tell me it's not a gaming TV. It is. They are advertising it for gaming. And if it is a QD OLED and a latest generation QD OLED display, it is a TV that I am interested in because QDO is the best technology. So it is a TV for me, and I am very disappointed that it is not better when it could be better. It could be much better, and it's not good for them, for Sony fans and for the industry to give them awards when if you go to the internet, you're gonna see a lot of backlash because people know that they could have delivered a lot better and they didn't. So yeah. Also, the irony of winning the TV shootout because of excellent SDR accuracy, when out of the box it comes with a weird white balance that they do an alternative point JUD or whatever that is not D65, is not accurate out of the box. So can you imagine the marketing, king of TVs, and because it's very accurate, and then people go and buy it thinking, oh, it won an SDR, and then it should be great for SDR and most of the content, and then when they try it, it just is the farthest from accuracy. It's just bad. It's just bad. So yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions, and if you have any questions.